Engage Vernon.
I'm your new wingman.
We will win because we have.
Welcome to CommLink.
Hello and welcome back to the CommLink Podcast for episode 3, where we're taking a look at day 2 of CitizenCon. I'm Stubb, and I'm joined by Silvius. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Ready to dig into this second day.
Dude, there's so much to this day. We were just talking about it before we hit the record button. But it was a pretty technical day at CitizenCon, day 2 was. So
yeah,
there's a lot to dive into. Before we get into it, though, again, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's been checking out the channel, that stopped by for the podcast or the reaction videos or both. Thanks so much. And if you enjoy this one, don't forget to hit the like button and hit us with a subscription. That'd be cool. So if you want to, of course, always appreciated. Do we want to go ahead and get into character advancement to kick off day 2?
let's do it. Yeah, so the first panel was character advancement. It was probably one of the slower panels of the day. I know it was probably one of your favorites. You know, you're all about character customization and hair.
Right.
I think first it kind of started off with talking about different types of fashion. And they kind of went into the frontier clothing, which was kind of cool. I think we saw like some trench coats and lots of pouches. They showed that part where they were in the pyro outpost, and they had the modular pouches that you could put on different parts of your body and the different locations that it would let you, and they would carry like different sizes of stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. I think some people were kind of like, pouches, but one of my favorite armor sets in the game is the I think it's the Stitcher core, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's the armor you find on the 890 jump mission, where it's kind of like the boots, and it kind of looks more like clothing made into a space suit. So I like that clothing look more so than like the undersuit with armor on top and stuff like that. I want to look more civilian, I guess, or just more regular clothes.
And being able to customize the pouches too, like, that's kind of a small thing, but if you are somebody who's really into customizing your character and like you're paying attention to every little detail, like that's going to be a lot of fun for those people.
And maybe they'll have like or they'll have different styles of pouches, and kind of like trying to think of a game to compare it to, but AZ kind of has that, maybe.
It does. Yeah.
I can't think of like a modular pouch system, but seems pretty cool. They talked about putting on your helmet and taking it off animations. I know a lot of people waiting for that, and I think I saw a Reddit post where somebody was in, I don't know if it was the Pyro playtest or PTU playtest, but they had a helmet box in their hands, and the character kind of like brought it up and kind of like put the box on their head and kind of like poofed into a helmet. So maybe we'll see that soon. Yeah, maybe we'll see that soon.
Had that been edited, or was that legit from the game? That was an edit,
that
right?
was no, I don't think so. I think it was somebody like in PTU like was trying to equip a helmet that they had in their hands, and it like did the animation
with the box. That's
to put it on. Yeah,
don't fix it. Keep that as a feature.
Yeah, just wear the box on your head. No helmet.
Exactly. But the animation's cool. They also talked about some gangs as well. I made a note too that the headhunters, I think visually might have been my favorite that they showed off. Either that or some of those Duster armor sets looked really cool too.
And they said the Dusters was coming Q4, I believe.
Yeah, they did. That's right. And but you know, the Headhunters, it's kind of got like a cool like space Mad Max vibe to them.
Yeah.
But I think it was was it the legendary Duster set though that had a cape as well that I thought looked pretty awesome. I was just thinking about walking around, started wearing a cape and got excited. Yeah,
that's where that cloth tech comes in.
Exactly. So maybe I am excited for Starcloth. I take everything I said last episode back, all for the sake of the cape. But now, did you? What were your thoughts on what they showed of the gangs, like Rough and Ready?
Yeah, I think the Rough and Ready was the one they focused on the most, because it's currently in development. Or I guess the Dusters are too, but I guess they're pretty close to being done. And then the Rough and Ready was one of the main gangs in Pyro. And I thought they looked cool. They showed off the tattoos. Was that in this panel? I think it was. Yeah, tattoos and
the gang tattoos, right?
Yeah, the gang related tattoos, because they show your or the NPC's level or value to the gang based on their tattoos. So the idea that you can not only get tattoos in the game, the fact that you can get meaningful ones that when someone sees them on you, if you really want to be affiliated with this gang, people see certain tattoos and they're like, oh wow, he's a Rough and Ready badass. But they look pretty cool. I think you were right when Headhunters were probably my favorite looking gang, just because of the Mad Max style stuff, and they kind of showed off some of the armor concepts for them. Looks really cool, and the armor progression they talked about within the gangs was kind of what I'm looking forward to the most, I guess, if that's the route I'm going to go. I haven't really decided like how I'm going to play that out on my main character.
Right.
Because you're going to be locked out of some content, I guess. Or some armors or rewards or whatever based on who you decide to gain reputation with.
That's why you just got to buy more game packages, more alts.
Yeah, I was thinking we know we both have our small alt accounts, and I might use that one more so as like the Headhunter gang, where they're ready to just kill people on sight, whereas Rough and Ready might be a little more friendly, I guess, if you're not affiliated with their gang. But I think they all looked pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of exciting stuff there. And there was talk too, you just brought up the armor leveling, but making better armor harder to acquire. That's going to be cool too, where like you're not just going to a shop on a space station or whatever and just putting on the heavy armor. You're like, okay, I'm good. Like I'm maxed out. I've got all the armor goodness I need from here. Instead, I like the idea of being able to get more rewards from this game other than just buying something in a store. So that was really cool to see.
Just on that point, the rep related armor, and even if there's like rep related weapons or ship liveries or whatever, that was one of my favorite parts of Guild Wars 1, probably the game I have the most hours clocked in ever. One of the coolest parts to me was there were certain armor sets where if you saw somebody wearing that, you're like, oh wow, they did this content and completed all these tasks, and so like what kind of player they are, I guess, and just the prestige of someone seeing you and be like, oh wow, I hope I can one day get up to that level and earn that cool armor that that person's wearing. So seeing that come to Star Citizen, I'm really excited about, because I wish more games did that type of thing where not just everyone can get the same armor just because it looks cool.
we're MMO players, right? And and people need to keep in mind that part of what Star Citizen isn't it's an MMO, right? So you like being able to see cool armor when you're in an area with other players and see something that catches your eye and know that there's still more in the game for you to work towards. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, someday I'm going to have that too. Always love that in MMOs, and it kind of keeps you motivated too a little bit. But it's really good seeing that more is being added to the game to reward the player other than just here's some more credits. You know, we've got other things to work towards now, or at least we will soon. TM, right?
I hope they tie the reputation into, like, it should be the integral part of pretty much the whole game should be reputation, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So that we can kind of get away from the days of, okay, you want to go do some bad boy stuff, and then, you know, so you murder a bunch of people or whatever. Finally, a bounty hunter comes, takes you out, and you go to prison and you do your time. And then when you walk out, it's like nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? Like, there's no real, like, long-term consequences to decisions that we make in the game at the moment. Whereas, you know, once all this reputation stuff comes online, you're going to have, well, you're not going to have to, but you're going to be encouraged to have more specific intentions with your play sessions. Like, what exactly is the direction I want to be taking this character in? Because it's no longer going to just be, well, I'll do a bunch of horrific stuff today, and then tomorrow I'm going to be, you know, Boy Scout goody two shoes, and, you know, then the next day after that, whatever, you know, but none of it really matters long term to your character, whereas going forward it finally will. I'm really excited for that.
Oh yeah.
New armor types. We've got combat specialists, utility, and support.
Yeah, so they talked about adding those archetypes in other than just the light, medium, heavy armor, and then having more like niche uses. So you're gonna want to, you know, pick that right armor for the job you're doing now. Whereas right now, pretty much everybody, unless you're just playing for fashion, pretty much everybody runs around in heavy armor, just expecting a fight, and there's no consequences to it. So seeing a trade-off for that heavy armor, and maybe forcing other people to use different stuff, just, you know, seeing a trader wearing heavy armor, it's kind of silly. So having an armor set that kind of helps them with their job and looks like it should go with it, I think will be really cool. And just adding that different dynamic to it instead of just light, medium, heavy. I like the idea of having to pre-plan not only like what you bring with you on your ship, but like what you wear and like that. Yeah. Again, that's one more thing where, like, you're gonna have to put more thought into what you're doing each play session, right? Which again, I'm here for. I think it's cool having the different armor types. I'm assuming I'll probably end up spending most of my playtime just in combat armor or whatever, but I do want to check out the others as well. I guess especially probably specialist after combat for me. But in any case, really cool looking stuff there, and it's nice to see armor getting some additional love, because it's been a while since this stuff has really been touched. You know. Yeah, we've pretty much had the same. They've always talked about restricting like flying and light fighters to light suits or light armor where you can't have bulky armor or a backpack on, and having like maybe they'll have certain flight suits that allow you to take more G's when you're fighting in your light fighter or whatever. So giving people that option is always going to be a plus.
Yeah, and it's going to help. Again, it goes back to being able to customize your character, not just aesthetically, but also in terms of gameplay, right? Especially for those players out there that really want to min-max different aspects of the game.
And the suit
you're going to have
lockers
to
will
start to
finally
consider this.
Suit lockers will finally have a use, whenever they bring those online. But you'll have to think ahead, like, hey, I might get in a combat situation later. Maybe I should bring my combat equipment with me, or I might be going to a hazardous area. I need to bring a hazard like biosuit with me or whatever. So
right,
making those useful and stuff is going to be cool.
Yep. And they also talked about hygiene as well during this panel.
I think we hit it on that a little bit last episode. I'm not crazy about having to shower and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess wear and tear on your armor and ships and stuff, and in that case, like, I understand that, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about having to shower yet.
Yeah, we need more specifics, right? Like, how often are you going to have to do it? All right, because there's already moments where it kind of feels like every, I'm just going to throw a number out there, but like every 45 minutes, I'm having to eat again, or I'm having to drink again for my character to keep those stats up. So now we're going to add hygiene on top of that. So how often am I going to have to, head back to the ship or go to a hab somewhere, shower off all that stuff? If it's every now and then, that's not so bad, right? But if it's something where you're having to do it like multiple times during an average play session, like that's not going to be a great experience. Yeah. So it's a balancing act with that stuff. But, when it comes to wear on armor and weapons and all that, though, I'm really honestly kind of excited for it.
Yeah.
This is something where, with sci-fi stuff, I like more when things look like they've been lived in, like sort of like Star Wars style. You know what I mean? So
like
being
the Reclaimer.
Yeah, but exactly. Well, maybe not quite that dingy. But I do like it to where not everything's just always super sleek all the time. And so, being able to see things get worn and degrade over time, I think is going to be cool to see in the game. What are your thoughts on that as far as things getting beat up over time?
I'm definitely okay with it as long as it's like not overtuned or anything. Like, I'm fine with eating and drinking too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I guess isn't a survival MMO necessarily, but like, you're a character living in a world, like, you're gonna have to take care of yourself. I don't mind it. I just don't want things to be like overtuned to where it's not fun anymore. Yeah. Like, if I'm having to repair my armor every play session or guns every play session, like, it might get a little tiring, but I am excited to see the wear and tear and stuff. And I think ships like I think the Carrack has like a repair facility in it. So seeing that, being able to like repair ship modules, or maybe you can repair your weapons there or whatever, that'll be cool. And I was thinking about it earlier because the only other game that I can think of that has like a lot of wear and tear is DayZ.
Yeah.
And the one thing I don't like in DayZ is you can never repair your stuff like back to pristine. Which I guess kind of makes sense, but if we're in the future and we have all this fancy equipment, I feel like you should be able to repair it to a point where it's just as good, if not almost as good as when you bought it.
Right.
So as long as it's not like that DayZ thing where like you can repair it, but it's still gonna like fuck up and be shitty half the time or not give you the right temperature rating or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited for it, but yeah, like I said, I just don't want it to be like overtuned and too much.
Yeah, I like survival game elements being put in Star Citizen, but I don't want it to turn into a hardcore survival sim.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So a little bit here and there is a good thing, but as long as they can maintain that balance, and as they're testing this stuff out, right, they're going to be taking in feedback and community thoughts on if they're going too far in some areas, or if maybe we would even like a little bit more added on to some of these systems as well, right? If we want even more out of them. So hopefully over the course of testing and as development continues, they'll find the right balance. It could be super awesome out of the gate, but
it would be cool to like if you go to a planet with like a lot of muddy ground or something, and then you walk back in your ship, like there's mud in your ship.
Yeah.
A really dusty planet, and then there's like dust all over everything. That would be cool to see. We'll see how they do it. So.
Yeah. And let's see, did we want to talk about Starcloth and hair?
I don't think we need to go into it a whole lot. I think we hit on it last episode and a little here and there in our different reacts and stuff. So yeah, this was a panel. They showed off the Starcloth with different weights of cloth behaving differently, like your leather behaving differently than your wool or whatever. How it works on characters. They went through the whole hair panel where they talked about, like all the little triangles on each thread of hair, and it was all really cool, like interesting technical stuff, but kind of stuff that I'm just like, that's cool, but just put it in the game and then, I'm going to use it one time and then it'll be done. Yeah,
not exactly interested in 15 or 20 minutes on it,
Yeah, I did like the beards, and obviously the DNA like pool expansion where it was like 14 different people, and now it's up to like 60. So
you're
not going to see like people's characters looking as similar anymore, stuff like that. That was cool. They did the whole live demo where one of the developers like created their character, and you could like pull the ears and like stretch them or like make the nose like longer or shorter. That was, it's all cool stuff, and like it was needed for sure.
Lots of detail. It looks great, but again, like
I don't think
you only want to spend so much time focused on it,
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be cool to see and make your character and everything.
Yeah. And, the fidelity is there, right? Like when they were showing off the makeup stuff, that looked great. I know we've talked before on the channel about how good the different hair dyes looked as well. And it is cool, you mentioned adding the 60 faces or whatever. So it's going to be a lot more of a diverse looking population out there in the verse. So that'll be cool as well. It's just when you're sitting around and you're waiting for big like gameplay updates or hair and cloth just aren't the first things that come to my mind. But it is cool, and I'm happy that the people working on those aspects of the game have made so much progress. Them talking about it being game ready assets, right? All the different hairstyles and everything was really cool. Like it wasn't, hey, here's something that we're working on right now, but you're probably not going to get your hands on for another couple years or whatever. It's no, this is ready. So and they're gonna trickle in more hairstyles over time, right?
Yeah. I think they said they're going to give us a few more in Q4 of this year.
Was it like 20 something?
Yeah, I think that's right. 15 or 20. I don't know if they mentioned beards coming in, facial hair yet. Yeah, I think we're getting a little update on the character creation this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So that'll be really cool to see. And kind of pretty much wraps up character advancement, right? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with that one?
I don't think so. I didn't expect to spend almost 30 minutes on that first panel since it was mostly cloth and hair, but yeah. Saving your character will be cool. Only having to create it once and then, kind of saving it, being able to share it with other people. Cool, but
nice quality of life update.
That was character advancement.
The next panel, one of my favorites from CitizenCon this year, life in first person. And they started
I really enjoyed this one too.
Yeah. And they started off with a bang, showing the EVA updates, the 0G gameplay, and it looked so good. Like the transitions from gravity to 0G, and then from 0G to gravity, it all looks so smooth. Like, hopefully, fingers crossed, gone are the days of you EVAing into a ship's hangar and then tumbling and spinning like 30 times before your character finally just flops down face first on the ground, and then you stand back up, right? It seems like that's going away, and really excited for that. It looked great. The animation looked really strong. And it's something that we've been waiting on for a long time, is for EVA to get some love. And
so long.
Oh man, it looks so great.
It's probably my second most wanted feature other than the star map. Star map is my first wanted, like, please get that in. And then EVA updates. Especially with the stuff we've been playing recently with like the salvage missions and having to go in and out of cargo holds in zero gravity. And I think in the demo video, he was like EVAing into a ship, and he's like, "Oh, and here we go. We're gonna face plant," and then he just like landed perfectly, and he's like, "Nah, just kidding." Yeah. So, God, I hope that's gone, and I hope they get it in soon.
I do wonder though, because I don't know if you noticed when they did that and they had that smooth landing, it was only shown in first person. So I wonder how that animation looks in third person. I wonder if it's a little wonky, like if that's why it was in first person, or if it was just in first, just because that's where they had the camera set, and it wasn't to hide some sort of weirdness happening with the animation as the character lands from the EVA onto a surface with gravity.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they could have been hiding an animation that's not done yet or something. But I would assume, since EVA is kind of like the Superman pose now, where you're like laying horizontally, I'm assuming it would just kind of like your character just kind of like pivots and ends up on its feet as you come into the gravity pull. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Might just not be ready to show yet.
And the grabbing onto surfaces was really cool. That'll help a lot with ships that are in soft death. Because like trying to navigate a big ship like an 890 or something with no gravity is a nightmare right now. So just being able to like pull yourself around corners and on walls, and I can't wait.
Yep, absolutely. And that's going to be really nice too, just for not just exploring ships in zero G, but any zero G combat that you find yourself in FPS. Being able to grip around that corner and make your transition around it so much smoother than if you're just flying with the current EVA model and things are a little wonky, to say the least. That's going to be cool. They also showed off some ladder gameplay as well. And while that might not sound super exciting. It actually looked really cool as well. Especially, I liked when they showed the characters sort of gripping off to one side of the ladder.
Yeah.
And positioning themselves either to the left or the right of the ladder itself. That animation looked really, really good, I thought. And
Yeah, that'll be cool for the outposts and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it helps keep you a little bit more agile, a little bit more flexible with your positioning while on the ladder itself, too, especially like if you're under fire. Or if maybe you're trying to avoid being seen from a window that's close to the ladder that you're climbing, that sort of thing. So cool stuff with the ladders. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to those?
Not really. Just much like EVA, ladders are pretty busted right now. Like climbing up the ladder in the C2. Like the other night, I was doing some salvage missions, and I swear I climbed to the top, and my character would get back on the ladder, and that probably happened like 4 or 5 times before I was able to actually like walk away from the ladder. So yeah. just making it more user friendly, just like the EVA, will be a plus in my book.
Yeah, I know there's definitely been times too, like where we've been out doing some bounty hunting or whatever in the Deemer and struggling with the ladder there as well. Ladders have been pretty annoying, so it's nice to see them get an update. That's one of those things where, maybe it's not the flashiest new feature coming, but in terms of quality of life and just enjoyment of playing the game, it's going to be significant, I think.
Yeah, it's just like
really happy to see that coming in.
Even if you don't hit like the 30Ks or like the bugs that just make the game unplayable, Star Citizen is sometimes like a death by 1,000 cuts, Yep. Like sometimes you get in your ship and it won't turn on right, or it won't lift off, and then you get stuck on a ladder, and then you're face planting an EVA, and it's just little things like that, I think, are stuff that drive less motivated players away from the game.
Oh, I mean, movement is so important in games just in general. The way that getting around in a game feels as you're playing it informs the experience that you're having so much. And when your movement, and you can tell that the game's movement isn't functioning properly, like it'll pull you out of things, right?
Yeah. It just makes everything way less enjoyable.
Yeah, and Star Citizen is not the kind of game that you want to sit down with and have to deal with just sloppy movement controls. You want to feel like you're in control of your character. To the nth degree possible, and that's just not currently where we're at in the game. But this life in first person panel has already shown us a few things just based on what we talked about so far that's going to make that significantly better for us going forward. Also in the panel, I guess it became pretty evident to me, at least, that Chris Roberts has been playing some Fallout and has decided Star Citizen needs some radiation. So that's on the way, and they showed off some of the radiation effects coming to the game.
Talked about how different suits would kind of protect you against different levels of radiation and like that.
Yep. I was just going to say, we were just talking a little bit earlier about the different armor types and different suits that you're wearing. Like you said, they're going to have different levels of viability in radioactive environments. So again, it's just one more thing to think about when you're kitting your character out, right? The types of environments that you're going to be going into. I'm kind of excited for radiation to come in, just because I feel like there's not a ton of really environmental damage in the game right now. Obviously if you're out in the vacuum of space and you take your helmet off, you're going to take some environmental damage that way. But there's not
They
really
have-
anything else like radiation in the game right now that I can think of, other than like low oxygen situations.
Extreme heat and extreme cold
That's
would
true.
be the only
yeah.
other thing.
Yep. Yep. You're right. You're right.
Because
but
if
it's
you're
gonna-
on like Aberdeen without the Pembroke armor, you have a very low survival time, and you start like blacking out, and your water goes down really quick, and stuff like that. So yeah, having that another environmental thing to have to plan around will be interesting.
And it was cool seeing how sort of dynamic that radiation system is too. Like when they showed character going behind a large object and sort of getting cover from the radiation, but as soon as they started to come around the corner again, the UI started to show that the radiation levels were going back up.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, so that was cool to see as well. So depending on the environment, radiation will add just one more layer to things. Player animations with interactions. What do we want to say on that?
Oh man, this was like kind of a really not detailed, but kind of technical. I don't know. They talked a lot about different interactions and quick interactions, and how now you're not just going to hold F and the little like options come up. All of that is changing. Being able to like keybind your most used action to F and stuff like that. All really cool updates. I think we've seen this before. Like maybe last CitizenCon, they were showing off new interactions and stuff for Squadron, or I don't remember when we saw it, but I remember the UI for it looking very similar to what we saw. And just being able, they showed off like, I guess, touching the like light panels and turning some valves on and off. So the fact that they're working on like a lot of animations like that is really cool. And just seeing your character interact with the world around it more instead of just holding F and then the thing happen.
Right.
Which I think a lot of games do, and it's okay. But having your character do that interaction is just brings it to another level.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that too with the next panel as well, when we start talking about the upcoming new cockpit experience.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's cool seeing those animations for sure. It's going to add more immersion to the game as well. The UI stuff is, I don't know, it's just kind of hard to talk about for me, other than just to say I'm happy for it. I think pretty much all the new UI updates they've shown look nice and clean and smooth. Like this game has been very sort of clunky with its UI over the years.
Yeah.
So any progress in that area is always welcome for me. And they showed off some pretty significant strides, I think, in that department.
Yeah.
Dude, can we talk about loot in Star Citizen?
Yeah, that new looting UI was probably
probably
the biggest thing that stood out to me from it. Just being able to run up and like double click things or move stuff around really quickly without having to dig through their pockets, and that clunky like going through the list of like 8 different interactions to hit loot, and then trying to grab the right thing, and that's going to make just doing bunkers or any sort of looting just way easier.
Oh yeah. We've played a lot of games with different looting systems before, and what they showed of the upcoming Star Citizen looting, it looks like it's on par with just about any other game that I can think of.
Oh yeah.
It looked very user friendly. and very easy to use, quick and efficient. If you're in a firefight in Star Citizen right now, and for whatever reason, while you're still in combat, if you go in to try to loot somebody with the current build of the game, like, you're dead. It's going to take way too long to get whatever it is that you're after. Whoever you're fighting is going to be able to pop you in the head while you're stuck waiting for the inventory screen to even populate and load up or whatever. And it's just clunky. Like,
That's a good word for it.
yeah. So quick looting, all here for it. I would like to give a round of applause to everybody that's worked on the new looting systems for Star Citizen, because oh my God, we have needed it. Also the ammo update that's coming. So with the UI, the new UI that they showed, what I loved when they were showing off the backpack reloading for this panel, where say you're out of mags that are equipped to your character's armor. So now your character is going to start to automatically, well, maybe not automatically. I don't know if you've got to hold down R a little longer or how that's actually going to work gameplay wise. But regardless, you're going to be able to somehow get your character to make a slightly slower reload, but where they're pulling mags from your backpack, and then using those for your gun. They showed the backpack icon in the UI at the bottom right to let you know that that's where your next mag's going to be pulled from.
Right.
Like, that's such a small little detail, but dude, I smiled when I saw it. I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Like, you guys have nailed it. This is exactly the information that I need in this situation. And it's not overly crowded or anything. It's just that simple little icon there. And when that icon goes away, there's no more to pull from your backpack. So whatever that mag is that you just put in the gun, that's what you're down to, Yeah. I really liked seeing that a lot.
That's it seems like a simple little thing that I feel like a lot of games that have that mechanic, like storing stuff in your inventory and having to equip it. Like, I keep going back to DayZ, but I feel like Star Citizen is a little bit like DayZ in space, where you have to like carry all your equipment with you and stuff. So just, being able to, like, that's not even a feature I knew I wanted, but I'm glad they're adding it. Instead of just like in a firefight having to open your inventory and then equip new mags really quick, you can just keep going, and it takes a little bit longer, but that was really cool. And the ammo repulling, talking about refilling your mags to full instead of having these like mags with 2 or 3 shots in them, and then it drops your empty ones, I think they said. And I think we had ammo packing and unpacking on the roadmap at one point.
Sounds right. That sounds right.
And I think it got pulled off, and they didn't really mention that in the panel. They mentioned about the pulling, where you interact with this thing and all your mags like magically fill. But they didn't talk about, pulling out a mag, then having to like manually reload it like a lot of survival games do, where you have to like do it one bullet at a time or just buy a fresh mag or whatever. Which if they're not doing the packing, I'm fine with it. If it's just like a click and fill, I think that's reasonable. If they did both, I wouldn't be upset over it, but it's the packing and unpacking is not something I need, and I thought the repulling was a good way to work around that if that's what they're using it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Also for the stealthier players out there, dude, the different stealth kills that they showed off look so cool.
This little section of the panel was interesting to me, because we like bounty hunting.
Yeah.
And it seems like a couple of these additions are going to be really good for bounty hunters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The animations on these stealth kills look so cool.
They do.
And I like that they showed that they're not automatically guaranteed one hit kills. Like you can fell these stealth kills.
Yeah, that's a nice addition.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think there were 3 different tiers, right? It was like novice, advanced, and then expert, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Not quite clear on how quickly you'll be able to go from level to level. Like how long does it take to go from the novice to the advanced and then from advanced to the expert level? So I don't know if that's going to be just a crazy amount of grinding or how they're planning on that.
I feel like we'll get more information on that eventually. I feel like there's probably like a trait system, because I feel like eventually you're going to be able to become like better at a better pilot or better FPS or better at medical or whatever. So I feel like there's going to be all these different traits we can train up, and stealth killing is just one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard much on traits and stuff yet.
But they did mention though, right, that the stealth kill would be part of the player's skill system that's coming.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
We just don't quite know what the overall big picture of the skill system looks like still. Yeah. But just that this will be an element of it and somehow tie into it. But yeah, then you mentioned bounty hunting just a minute ago. The sedative injection pins, the restraints, all that stuff's fine and dandy, but man, where's my taser at?
Right. Yeah.
Where's my space taser?
Yeah, they mentioned the sedative injections, which I guess kind of like a taser. You got to get closer for it. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if they added in some sort of stun weapon or something in the near future. It's probably just wasn't ready to show off yet, but just being able to like
non-lethal range weapons too, I'm sure.
The non-lethal takedowns and being able to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Make a situation less hostile, like going in your favor, to kind of get a better control on it. So you're trying to apprehend a bounty. You don't want to kill them. They're being really hostile, shooting at you, whatever. You now have more ways to take them down and strain them. And they showed the cuffs on the feet and the hands, and we're saying like people could still call out if they were restrained, and that's where the stashing the bodies around the environment would come in, like dragging them into a little cubby hole and throwing some duct tape on their mouth, I guess, or something, so they don't alert more guards or whatever the scenario is. That'll be cool and kind of what a GTA, but
kind of like Metal Gear or Splinter Cell, sort of. Yeah. Or Hitman as well, right? You can do some body hiding in those games. The FPS ping was also talked about in this panel. I'm still not clear on how often you're going to be able to spam that thing, which still has me kind of concerned when it comes to PvP firefights. But it does look cool.
I didn't pay enough attention in the panel, but they did show it has like a recharge time with like a little bar that charges up. And they said that even after you use that charge scan, you can't even do like a small scan until that bar is filled back up. I could have paid attention and counted the seconds it took to fill back up, but I feel like that's something that's probably going to change between now and when we see it, maybe. So, yeah, we'll see how long it takes, but there is some sort of downtime there. Sure.
Yeah, and did we want to talk too with the charge scans about the emission spike that'll happen as a result?
Yeah, they talked about, so this was like all talking about stealth gameplay, I think specifically. And they mentioned you have the small scan and the charge one where you can see people through objects and whatnot, but it would give away a higher emission. And I think he made the comment that NPCs with the right equipment could pick you up. So, just your normal sentry or grunt with the weapon might not be able to pick up your scan, but then there might be, a specialized NPC that alerts the rest of them that if you're not careful, they might find you. So yeah, it's not like I don't think it was it shoots up like a beam out of your head or anything.
Right.
But I think certain suits or equipment's going to be able to pick it up somehow. And they didn't say if that's only for NPCs being able to pick it up or players. I don't think they mentioned that. So
yeah, that would be interesting if players will be able to use whatever that tech is that's going to let NPCs pick up your emissions. They also talked about weapon, armor, and clothing wear, right? We kind of touched on a little bit earlier. But it's going to have some real effect to gameplay too, right? Like when they were showing off the pistol, I forget exactly which one they were using, but they would show a gem up to where you would have to clear the gem, clear the chamber and all of that. That is something that I do like seeing come to the game, but again, this is going to be one of those things where it's like, how often are we going to have to clean or repair our weapons? Is it going to be after every firefight that happens? Is it going to be, something you have to do every few firefights, maybe once a play session, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm just worried. Part of me is worried, and I don't think I necessarily have to be, but there is part of me that's like, man, how often am I going to be maintaining my armor, my weapons, my ship, and my actual player character, all in the same session?
yeah.
How many times am I going to have to repair a component, take a shower, clean a gun so it doesn't jam on me, repair some armor so I have some full protection or whatever? Like how much am I going to be doing that stuff versus actually going out and doing a mission or, engaging with the rest of the game outside of all the different things that sort of fall underneath, I guess what you would call player maintenance.
Yeah.
They gotta get that balance right.
I think the misfires and stuff like that's probably a needed thing to happen. And being able to clear it and stuff is cool and everything. And I guess based on your, I guess to go back on your point, it would be, I guess, dependent on what you're doing, according to them. So if you're sitting in your ship, running some cargo and stuff, you're probably not going to accumulate a lot of dirt and wear, I guess. But if you're going out in pyro and going out in these dusty locations or hazardous environments and shooting your gun a lot, I guess it's going to make you do more upkeep depending on what you're doing and what type of environments. And they even talked about the way you store your stuff is going to affect how it wears. But yeah, just to your point, they just need to tune it for fun instead of realistic, I guess. Which, like, DayZ does it pretty well. I think theirs is a little overtuned sometimes. I guess I play a lot of mods on there, so I guess it's hard to judge a baseline, but yeah, just they can't overdo it, and it's something I'm wanting to see, but I don't want to be repairing shit every time I play.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where I'm at on it too. I like seeing that stuff come in here, but again, like we said, let's not go too far into the hardcore survival sim direction. Little elements sprinkled here and there, that's great for immersion and can still be really fun. But I don't want to have to start to boot up Star Citizen and feel like there's a list of chores that I have to do every single time. But yeah, again, it looked really good. The animation looked great when they were clearing the jam. And they continue to talk about things dealing with weapons, right? So including the recoil and ADS changes, which are pretty big in my opinion. Especially the recoil patterns changing going to make it feel so much different. When you're in those firefights.
Between that and the sounds and how they're changing how you how you raise your weapon and stuff, like how they're going to have weight, so your LMGs take longer to like raise to your line of sight than your SMGs do and stuff like that. So yeah, it's gonna feel a lot different. Yeah, it really is. And they also talked about, speaking of the ADS, changing up the iron sights on weapons too, to where there's not really so much geometry going on, and instead sights are a bit more clear when it comes to your view, just to make target acquisition, I think, easier across the board, which I think was a really smart move. Like I'm in favor of that. And yeah, just every weapon that they showed felt like it had so much more punch to it. I don't necessarily mean like damage output, but just between the animation changes and the audio, like you were talking about, it really, they said in the panel that guns are violent by nature, and they wanted to express more of that violence when you're doing the gunplay in the game. And I think they're on the right track for that. I was really impressed by what they showed. I think these are some really good changes coming to the game when it comes to our FPS weapons. Because I don't hate current FPS gameplay in the game, but there's definitely been some room for improvement, and it looks like they've been busy working on a lot of those improvements. Oh yeah, it's gonna make all the guns feel more unique, and like right now I pretty much use a P4 for everything. So yeah, having those different weapon types and choosing like different energy versus ballistic for different scenarios and making them feel more unique and different and stuff. That's always a good thing. Yeah, and the Volt weapons, that's going to be cool. I didn't know like how they're going to differentiate those from like energy weapons a whole lot. I guess they like talked about them overheating and stuff like that, but yeah, it seems like it's going to be more like temperature management. Yeah, those. I wonder if there's going to be a new weapon type for like stuns, or if these like Volt weapons or energy weapons might have a setting where it's like a set your phasers to stun type deal. And that would be great in place of a taser. Yeah, for non-lethal bounty hunting. Yeah, so instead of having to make tasers, they could just take these energy weapons or Volt weapons and just be like a little, like on some weapons, how you can change from auto to semi or single fire, change it from lethal to non-lethal. Yeah, you just put it on low and like, hey, look, I didn't barbecue the guy. I just gave him a seizure. He's fine. It'll be okay. Yeah. So those, looking forward to more information on the Volt weapons, but cool to see them pop up. Gosh, there was so much with weapons. The scope overhaul. The scopes look really good. Yeah, they do.
I'm trying to think like what game has the best looking scopes that I can think of, and I'm not really sure what I would say would have the absolute best, but I do enjoy the scopes when they do feel more realistic, I guess.
Right.
It seems like maybe we're getting some of that with this overhaul. They look a little bit more natural.
Yeah, I thought one of the cool parts was I think they said like a person like looking over your shoulder would like see the scope as like a person in real life looking over your shoulder would.
Yeah.
Instead of just like having this like magic, however they do them now. They looked really cool with like all the parallax and how scopes work in real life. And I don't play enough shooters to know like which game does it really well. I can't think of one. But seeing that come to our space game is really exciting, and that'll just be one more thing that you can tell like FPS nuts that, oh, we got some really cool weapons and like scopes look really realistic, and
yeah,
it's just another level of fidelity and immersion that this game prides itself on.
Yeah, and just keeping it coming with the weapons, dude. The new dynamic crosshair, I was really happy to see as well. Looked really good, and I like with the crosshair. They specifically pointed out that crosshair is where your barrel is pointed. Right.
Yeah. It's not like it's not your like eye line or what, like your line of sight or whatever you want to call it. It's actually where your weapon's pointing, and they made the comment that if you don't want it, you could wear a different visor that might not use that technology or something. So it looks really cool, and having the option to turn it off also neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Time to kill, force reactions they touched on as well. They want a higher time to kill in the game to make it where it's not necessarily who shoots first that's going to win the fight, but there's going to be a little bit more strategy involved because the kills won't be as quick.
I saw Burks trying this out on one of the Pyro streams, I think, because the Pyro build is supposed to have the Squadron 42 AI or something like that with the updated time to kill and whatever, and they were testing on each other the time to kill on players. And one thing they noticed was even without your helmet, it's like it still took like 5 shots to the head with a pistol from like really, really close range to down a person. So I'm not sure. Like, I do think there should be an increased time to kill, but I think it should be increased based on armor and stuff you're wearing and caliber of weapon. Like if you don't have a helmet on and you get shot in the head, you should instantly be down, in my opinion.
Right. Especially
from like close range, maybe 2 shots with a pistol. But if it's like a sniper rifle to the head, I feel like you should be down. If you don't have the correct armor or helmet to protect yourself from that particular caliber or energy weapon or whatever it is, they need to balance it around what you're wearing and the type of weapon rather than just like everybody's a bullet sponge across the board.
Right.
That makes sense. And they might be doing it that way. It's just when Burks tested it out, when I saw it, it looked like people are just kind of like bullet spongy now. No matter if they're not wearing armor or whatever. So hopefully that's not final. But yeah, time to kill did need to go up. I feel like just doesn't need to go up like that.
Right. Yeah. Five shots to the head, close range with a pistol. That's a bit much. Honestly, if you're not wearing a helmet or anything, even if a single tap to the head with a pistol doesn't kill you, like I feel like that should still end cap you.
Yeah.
Like that should be some significant trauma to your character, even like a point blank headshot with no helmet, you know?
I
So
think
five shots is crazy to me.
I think when he got back up, he did have like a pretty serious head injury and stuff. But yeah, I would like to see a little more variance and stuff there. I mean, it could be being developed that way, you know. Might have just been first iteration or whatever. So we'll see what happens. They also talked about the combat AI.
Yeah, with the different traits coming.
That
to
was
the game.
a pretty lengthy little section there that they showed like all the different little blocks of the different traits they have and how they can mix and match them and make them aggressive or cautious, and whether they're a medic or a sentry or whatever. That was interesting to see.
Yeah,
it'll be cool.
And it was really awesome because they said it, and it makes sense. This is going to help create more dynamic and memorable combat situations, right? To where, you know, if you're going to go say run a bunker or whatever, typically in the game right now, unless you no. In the game right now, the NPCs that you run into are basically all going to think in the same way, have the same skill set, and you know, maybe there's some behavior differences between like your average NPC enemy and then like the boss NPC. I'm not quite sure on that, or if they're just a little spongier. But anyway, this is going to make it to where, like you were saying, some of them are going to be more aggressive. One of the ones that stuck out to me too was, you know, do they have trigger discipline or a lack of trigger discipline? Are they going to continue to fire at your position if you take cover or not? Right? Maybe some of the more reckless AI types out there, they will to try to destroy that cover that you're behind, because, you know, as they've shown at CitizenCon, with Maelstrom, destructible environments are coming, right? To where, say, if you're behind a bit of concrete or whatever, right? Eventually that could be kind of blown to bits and then you would be exposed again. So I think this is really cool. But there's also part of me that's like, yeah, all this is great. Different AI sort of personalities coming into the game. But then I also just think like, well, if the servers are struggling, like the AI is still going to be dead anyway with different personalities or not. So, but you know, there's plenty of new tech coming online. So hopefully by the time the AI traits will see their way into the PU, hopefully that will also come along with some improved just general AI and server performance. Because I do want to experience this, but then, you know, like I said, there's that part of me is like, okay, once this gets patched into the game, like we're gonna know it's there running in the background, but man, they're not even leaving the spawn closet right now. So what's the difference, you know? But cool to see. Cool to see.
I don't know if you've caught any of the anybody streaming Pyro during the playtest or not.
I haven't,
but I've
not much.
I've watched a few people, and there's like there's these new missions where they take place in one of the hangars on the station. So you don't even leave the station that you spawn in or doing your business in or whatever. And you go down in a hangar that's, I don't know what the exact mission is. I think it's eliminate a X amount of hostiles. And from what I've seen, it can get pretty spicy.
Yeah.
Even with the servers like not running optimal, I think just having that new set of traits for the AI, whether they're aggressive or cautious or whatever, it just makes them push you a lot more. It makes them do cover more often. They can use grenades now. So just stuff like that is making it a lot harder from what I've seen just in Pyro so far without, the replication layer and all of that stuff running. So I think it is working.
That's good to hear.
Somewhat.
So that sounds like maybe these character traits will come in and actually be meaningful off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's promising.
And the presenter, I forgot who it was, but he talked about the medic trait and how it's kind of the first. I don't know if he called it a profession or it's the first trait that like gives the AI like something other than just shoot at something, right?
Right. So
that made me think, that's going to kind of lead into AI crew.
That makes sense.
If they're training them to be medics, they can train them to be engineers and all this other stuff. So seeing that kind of first iteration of a medic kind of like picking someone up and then assessing the situation and going from there was kind of cool to see, because I feel like that's sort of the first steps towards AI crew. So that's what I thought when I saw it.
I didn't even think about that part of it, but you're right. You're right. Man, it's it's one of those things where, again, like we're talking about something that's just going to be running in the background, but it's so so fundamentally going to shift, I think, your average combat experience in the game, which I'm all for, to make it to where it's not like, okay, we're gonna run another mission and it's gonna be pretty cookie cutter. We're gonna face the same exact kind of resistance and the same level of skill and strategy that they bring. Like, no, it's gonna be, again, we keep using this word, but it's gonna be more dynamic, which is exciting. So when you going forward, once this hits and you go down into a bunker mission or whatever, you don't know exactly what kind of strategies you're going to be going up against, which is really exciting.
Yeah, between the AI traits and the new outpost and Pyro and the different ways of tackling those missions, I think that's going to definitely shake up that bunker after bunker after bunker just being the same thing.
Yeah.
It's going to, I think Pyro is going to shake it up a lot.
And
but I think
I was going to say too, we also have in the notes that NPCs can run out of ammo. So that, I think, plays into, I think maybe it's the reckless trait.
Yeah.
Maybe it's reckless, and then the one that makes them also fire into cover, because that puts them at a higher risk of going through all their mags trying to destroy whatever you're hiding behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess right now they just have infinite ammo. So they'll just stand there and just shoot you for as long as they want. So having the AI to have to not only like choose when they shoot, but also figure out how to reload their weapons, like looting a downed another downed NPC, or finding the box with the ammo in it and having to move to it, or whatever they do. It's just adding another dynamic to the fights. So that's a small change, big improvement.
Yeah, that's it. And then next we had the Taking Flight panel, taking things back out into space and back to the ships. So they started off talking about the new, more realistic cockpit experience, and I was way more excited for it than I thought I was going to be, because currently in the game, you get into your ship, right, and you power it on. God, what's the key for that? You just hold, is it F or maybe U? I don't know, because they've changed keybinds. Flight ready.
Right, Alt plus R now.
That's it. So, but instead, it's going to be going forward. And the example they showed was a Gladius. So they showed the new animation of the character getting into the Gladius. But then once you're in there, your character is no longer, once you hit left alt R or whatever the new keybind is not just going to automatically close the cockpit canopy and power on the ship and turn on engines and all that. Instead, you're going to have to go in and hit the button to close the canopy, hit the power button, then hit your engine button. And once you do that, then your character hands go onto the flight sticks and you can go about your business. And it's just again, it's one of those little things, but it makes it feel like you're more in control of things that are happening. It's less sitting back and watching an animation happen for you and more interactivity, even if it's just really quick of like, all right, I got to look over to my left, close canopy real quick, and then over to my right, like right on top of each other. 2 buttons, boom, there's my power button, there's my engine button. Let's rock and roll. You know?
It's really cool seeing the character push the buttons and flip the switches. And I don't know, after they talked about all the interactions coming with the environment and stuff, I used to think like they are never going to be able to animate every single cockpit in this game, but you know, maybe with all these, you know, interaction updates and stuff, it'll be easier than I thought. I really want to see it because we've only ever seen it in the Gladius. You know, now we have the startup animation where you hit flight ready and he like looks around and punches all the buttons and stuff. But yeah, being able to do it button by button, and then especially in other ships, because we've never seen it in anything besides the Gladius. So other ships will be cool and stuff too.
I do want to add too, part of my excitement for this. So that current animation in the game for the Gladius, where he's hitting all the switches and buttons or whatever, when they first talked about this more realistic cockpit experience, like, oh no, we're going to have to manually do all of that. What makes it still fun and exciting to me as playing from the standpoint of playing a video game and not this hyper realistic sim necessarily, is that we weren't hitting 20 different switches. It was just that quick boom, boom, boom. All right, ship's ready to go. Instead of like, oh, I've got to look all around my cockpit and, you know, make sure I'm hitting all of these switches in the correct order. And I've got to hit this button and I've got a knob over here to turn. And, you know, 30 seconds later, you know, I finally remembered to hit everything in the correct sequence and now we can fly. You know, instead it's just enough to make it feel like you're doing something, but it's not too much to where it feels like something that's going to become burdensome the more you do it. You know what I mean? Like, right, I'm not going to dread starting up my ship, but instead it'll be like this quick little interaction that'll keep me more engaged with the content that I'm playing, but also isn't going to feel too much like work. You know?
Yeah.
So I think actually that is a good example of them finding that balance between realistic, sort of cool fidelity, immersion to the max, and then also just making a fun video game. Like it's in that sweet spot in between, you know?
Yeah, they definitely got to hit that sweet spot on more things, but yeah, I agree.
They also, you know, they gave us the ship UI demo, which
the UI looks really good.
Yeah, I know I'm a broken record when it comes to talking about these new UI updates, but it looks so clean. Like, for anybody that's not played Star Citizen, if you made it this far into this podcast about Star Citizen, one, that's pretty awesome. But two, like, it doesn't take long for things to get real confusing. When you're flying around in your ship with all the different icons popping up on your screen, things get overcrowded and cluttered fast right now. And in the new ship UI they're showing off, like, again, it was one of those things again that just made me so happy to see. It's like, finally we're getting some needed quality of life changes.
the two biggest things that stood out to me about the new UI, one was the less visual clutter in front of your eyes, as far as like the HUD goes with your speedometer and elevation and all your little like gear buttons and stuff. All of that blocks your vision right now. But in the new HUD, it's like very streamlined. It's right above the MFDs. The MFDs give you more information, but also look like more simplified somehow. So I like that about it, and the fact that you could pick certain parts of your UI to cast to your visor.
Yeah.
So if you're using like head tracking or whatever, and you have important information on your MFD, but you need to like look to your side to see your enemy or whatever, you still have whatever information you choose to display, whether it be your ship status or your target status or whatever. It'll still move with your head instead of being in a static location in front of your cockpit or whatever. So that was pretty cool to me.
Yeah. Agreed. And they also talked about too, like, with the example they were showing with the Gladius, there's like holographic elements to the UI. But they did make the point to say too that the different manufacturers are still going to have their own personality when it comes to this. Like, so for example, the Gladius might have like the cool hologram stuff going on, whereas your Drake ship is still going to use like old school screens and physical knobs that you have to turn and that sort of thing, or light indicators instead of the fancy high tech stuff.
I do wish they would have hit on that a little bit more. Like that is like a good point of like, having to use more lights or like knobs or whatever instead of the displays and stuff like that. But I do wish, and they probably haven't worked on it yet, just like the different manufacturer HUDs and how they're going to work, and how is a Gladius going to look different from a Arrow, and how's a Arrow going to look different to a trading ship. And so seeing that would have been cool, but probably just still being worked on.
Space dust. Do we have a lot to say on space dust?
No, it's there. I don't mind it. It's
right.
I think they should probably give you the option to turn it off. I hope that's an option. It doesn't really bother me, but I'm sure some people will not enjoy it.
Yeah. Also, I don't have much to say on it either, other than I do hope there's a toggle for it. It's kind of another one of those like neat little things, but on to the next topic, which in this case is going to be G-force movements. And we talked about this a little bit before we started to record as well. There's some concerns with what they showed.
Yeah. Like right now, I know they have like might be audio driven shake or something, that makes your camera move like that. But, when my PC, I had to reset it and stuff the other week and had to re-download Star Citizen and didn't save any of my profiles or anything. So I had to redo all my settings. And now I don't know if it was an option I had turned off or just something I hadn't noticed before. But now, like when I fly my Ion, I notice my character having those like G-force movements, accelerate or hit the brakes. Like my character's head like physically moves in the cockpit, and I feel like I didn't notice that before. Like I said, maybe it was an option I had turned off and haven't seen to turn it back off yet. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about the G-force movements. Like, it's definitely more realistic, but I know we have at least one friend in particular that gets sick, like, with a lot of movement and
as it currently
like
is
that.
In the game.
Yeah, as it currently is. So I feel like with those G-force movements, like people with motion sickness are going to struggle even more.
Yeah. I think what I said earlier off the air was it looks really cool, but I'm worried about how pleasant it actually is going to be to play. Right. Because I just watching that, I thought of the one friend in particular that's played Star Citizen before, felt sick while trying to fly. I was like, well, if he felt sick based off of the current build, like there's not going to be a hope and a prayer that with these added G-force movements that it's going to be any better for him whatsoever. There's a lot of bobbing around. So
I think a lot of it was probably for people that use head tracking and stuff. I guess it would make more sense in that regard, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, hopefully it's something you can turn off. Like, I don't really see having it off as being like a combat advantage. Maybe I'm not seeing the right scenario there, but I don't. As long as your character still takes the same G-forces and passes out at the same rate and stuff, like, I don't see the actual head movement giving you an advantage or disadvantage in a fight. So yeah, hopefully it would be another one of those things that you can just turn off if you don't like it.
Yeah, that would be nice. Because given the option, I don't think I would play with it very much as someone who doesn't really get motion sick when it comes to flying in games. But even so, like, it just, again, it's one of those things, like I said, it looks cool, but I don't know actually how fun that's going to be,
Yeah.
They also talked about sticky throttle, which honestly, I don't really remember what that is.
So I don't either. They had it, I think, before I started playing.
I think they said
took it away
pre 3.5, right?
Yeah, it was something for mouse and keyboard users. W and S would like. I feel like it's almost like cruise control, but like W and S would like stick your throttle at a certain place, and then you could accelerate up and down from there. I don't exactly understand it, but they did talk about bringing it back.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that one because I don't even get the concept. But it's coming back. So for anybody that missed sticky throttle, good news.
Oh yeah.
Tricording changes. This is another one where I didn't quite understand it, other than I do remember they said that it's going to be tricording is going to be tricky with specific ships for whatever reason.
Yeah. This panel in particular, and especially like once it gets to here in the panel, I started kind of zoning out here and there. Because like I think we've discussed before, I didn't buy Star Citizen to be a combat player necessarily. I enjoy combat. I don't. Sometimes I'll seek it out. I don't usually necessarily avoid it. But it's not something that I'm like super like excited for. I don't want to be the best fighter pilot in the game or whatever. So the tricording, like I don't have the skill to, like, I know what tricording is. I know how to use it. But I don't have the skill when flying to like make it matter really. Like,
right.
I'm an average pilot at best. And all these like combat changes and stuff, kind of like I was listening and paying attention, but they kind of went over my head because I haven't trained myself to take full advantage of the tricording or how it works now. So I guess I was just like, well, they're changing it and I'll figure it out once they change it. So I don't think they talked about taking tricording completely away. I think they just talked about how it's going to be less of an advantage for certain ships.
Okay.
Basically. I don't know.
Yeah. I just feel like I'm out of the know on both sticky throttle and tricording. But Maybe Avenger 1 has a video on tricording I could look up.
If you remember that time we were playing in Arena Commander with Moist, he kind of taught us how to do tricording then. It's basically like you're using your up and strafe at the same time as going forward to get the most like boost in that direction you want to go. So like,
okay, I do remember that.
On that, they call it 45s in the PvP community. Doing your 45s, you go to that 45 angle, you pitch in that direction, you boost up or down, whichever, depending on which orientation you're at or whatever, and it lets your ship pull a shit ton of G's.
Yeah.
Basically because you're using like 3 directions of force at the same time, I think. And in my small brain understanding of it. But yeah, like I said, like that whole part of the panel, I was just like, yeah, if they take it away, that's fine. If they keep it, fine too. I'll figure it out once they figure it out.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I feel like about master modes. Like until I can play it and like get it in my hands, like it's just one of those things they talk about a lot. I mean, we could sit here for another hour and talk about SCM versus nav mode, master modes and stuff, but we don't really know how it's going to work until we see it on more ships than just the Gladius.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to get my hands on master modes, but there's not a ton to say as far as an opinion on it until that happens.
Yeah.
I am interested in it, and I've enjoyed hearing the devs talk about it and show it off. But to me, that's one of those things like you're going to have to feel for yourself to really have a fully formed opinion on. But I will say, I'm happy. I think, at least in theory, that they're going to be slowing down ship combat a bit. And, as they said during the panel, Master Mode should help close the gap in fights to where there's not a lot of backstrafing going on anymore, and you're just hoping you get a shot in here and there. Instead, it's going to be a lot closer up.
I hate the backstrafing meta. God,
yeah.
I know we haven't done bounty hunting in a long time, but if you remember, a couple of times we ran into some players in like a Vanguard Sentinel. I think it's one of the worst offenders for backstrafing and just launching missile after missile after missile at you, and there's no way to counter it. I mean, chase them and try and damage them a little bit, but as long as people can backstrafe, as long as people can backstrafe at full speed, like there's going to be that set of people that do that, and master modes I think is the solution to that. So I'm definitely excited for master modes and the fact that it's going to change how combat works, it's going to change how we interact with our ships, and you're going to have to make more choices, trading, mining, no matter what kind of ship you're in. I want to see it. I'm going to have to see it applied to like a wider use than just combat before I fully understand. I mean, I understand how it works, but to see how it's going to affect the overall life of the game, I guess.
Yeah. Also, continuing on with the topic of changes coming to ship gameplay, that new quantum travel
looks really good.
That looks so good. It looks so good, and it's more interactive now. Sort of one of the complaints, I don't even know if it's a complaint so much, but for people that play Star Citizen a lot, you see it come up in conversation from time to time that once you hit quantum, barring something like a mantis pulling you out, you getting interdicted, it's a very passive part of the game, right? You spool up, you calibrate, you hit B, and boom, you jump. Whereas now, you're going to have to, what do they call it? Locking the bubble. You have to lock that bubble in to where I guess you're essentially just keeping your ship on course for the quantum travel for like the first few seconds, right? And making sure that your ship is staying on track, and then you'll have a pop-up on screen saying that it's like bubble locked or something, and then you can go hands off. But up until then, if you're not maintaining control of your ship and fighting against those quantum forces to lock it in, the quantum jump will fail. And you'll be SOL for a while until like your stuff recharges and you can spool up and calibrate again and all of that. So just like adding a little mini game to quantum travel, basically.
It's more like Elite Dangerous.
Yeah.
If you remember, Elite Dangerous has like that kind of that boost speed or whatever, and kind of have to, you can still kind of like steer in it almost. But kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, I'm glad they kept being able to lock your destination or lock the bubble, whatever they're going to call it, after so ever much of, you know, holding it on that position. So you're just imagine a 30-minute quantum with like having to hold it in that same spot. I think I would quit playing the game. But yeah, I like the fact the little mini game they're adding is.
Yeah, and the quantum boost itself, you know, for the short range jumps, that's going to be such a huge change to the game when it comes to travel. It's going to be so nice. The fact that it works in any direction is fantastic. Yeah. And it is hands-on the whole time, right? So like your more traditional quantum travel jump, you're going to have to lock in that bubble for the first few seconds, and then after that, it's hands off until you get to your destination. But with the boost, you are manually sort of in control of that the entire time. And, you know, in the demo, it's still really fucking fast.
Yeah.
Too, you know?
It'll be cool using that to like just get around moons, and it should make traveling way easier than, even if we don't get the new star map before, like,
yeah,
hopefully it'll make traveling a little less of a headache.
Do you think, because I don't remember them giving us this information during the panel, do you think to do the quantum boost, not the jump, but the boost, you think you'll still have to leave atmosphere first? Because I'm thinking about like just trying to traverse the different locations on the same planet or moon. Like, you think you'll still have to go all the way back up out of atmosphere first and then do the boost? Or if you would be able to do it from, say, you know, 4,000 meters up in the air or whatever.
Yeah, it's a interesting point. I don't think they, to my knowledge, I don't know if they mentioned that.
Yeah, I
would assume you couldn't do it in atmosphere, but that would be really cool if you could.
Yeah.
I mean, I could imagine like, I don't know, like crashing into the ground at quantum boost speed or something, but yeah, I don't know. That would be cool to just like, instead of having to go out of atmosphere, lock your route, look at it, and then it like spline you around the planet. You could just like, maybe you're trying to keep a low profile and like want to travel somewhere quickly, you can stay like 2,000 meters above the ground and just boost across the surface. That'd be cool.
Like, I'm not expecting them to let us do it like straight from the ground and then like right out of the atmosphere and into space, like boosting that whole time. Like, I'm assuming there's still going to be some sort of like minimum altitude needed.
Yeah.
But is it going to be exactly the same as the quantum jump? I would like to know, you know?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And was there anything else that we wanted to talk about when it comes to quantum travel or boosting?
I think we've hit everything I could think of.
Yeah, just that
really
additional
cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Like the quantum visual itself looks really nice. I'm really excited to see what the alien versions of quantum travel is going to look like.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't think it can be overstated, like, how much added freedom we're going to be given through that quantum boost in any direction. Like, that's such a game changer for travel in the game, in my opinion.
Or even like getting away from another player, because now you don't have to spool up and then find an OM or a planet to jump to. You can just enter your nav mode and boost out of there in a certain direction until you're safe, and then you can decide where to go.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be a game changer, I think. I'm looking forward to quantum boosting a lot. And earlier in this episode we were talking about AI improvements for NPC enemies when it comes to firefights, but we're also getting AI updates to flight combat as well, not just on the ground but also in ships.
Yep. Yeah, they're basically giving them different roles, kind of like the FPS AI is getting. That was another one of those sections I kind of zoned out on. I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is cool and everything, but it's another one of those behind the scenes things that we're not going to see, but we'll be able to notice when we're doing missions and stuff. So yeah, any improvements like that, I'm always good for.
Yeah, always excited for them to add a bit more variety to combat. And so yeah, and we've got here in the notes with the AI flight, we're gonna have people in like an interceptor role, AI that's doing more strafing or jousting, or maybe they'll just disengage from you during the fight, pull back a little bit, right, and recalibrate the attack plan.
Yeah, they showed it off with that little fight they were doing, and had a hammerhead there, and when they showed the jumping a little ahead, the precision targeting mode on the hammerhead, the guy like destroyed the 2 turrets, and then the hammerhead was like, "Oh shit, I got to get out of here," so it disengaged.
Yeah.
But yeah, just stuff like that's going to be neat. And the precision targeting mode, it looks really cool, and I'm sure I'm going to use it. I was a little concerned about it being overly powerful, because that guy, obviously the hammerhead wasn't shooting at him, but he was just kind of like chilling there, and he was able to take out 2 of the hammerhead's turrets relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So for anybody that needs a refresher on the precision, it's almost like a zoomed in mode on your target, and then it'll highlight different sections like a turret. I think they said it can do like different components like power plants, whatever. And then it slows your fire rate, so you're more accurate too. So it basically like zooms you in and makes you more accurate, and it's like hitting a specific spot on a ship. And it looks really cool. And yeah, like I said, I'm sure myself and a lot of people are going to use it. It's just I don't want it to be overly powerful. It kind of going back to that engineering panel that we talked about, the Gladius just shutting down that C2. If a single Gladius can shut down a hammerhead, like that ain't good.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully again, those visuals were just demonstrating the tech and not necessarily a sign of huge imbalances coming to combat. Yeah.
On that balance change, they talked about changing the firing ranges of different weapons based on their size, I think. And how they're changing, like now when you have a gimbal equipped, it sizes the weapon down. They're taking that away, so your gimbals are going to be same size as the socket that fits the weapon, I believe. That's an interesting change there. They were talking about how the aiming system that they're updating is going to compensate, because I think they said that was because joystick versus keyboard and mouse users, it was kind of to balance that.
Okay.
But with the new combat mode, they don't really have to do that. So gimbal users, better weapons.
Yeah. So if you're flying around gimbaled, you're getting a bit of a bump or a boost.
Yeah, seems that way. Which I still hope they give fixed weapons an advantage.
Yeah.
Over the gimbals. As long as they keep that in, I'm okay with it.
And the pip optimizations.
That was a lot of graphs and stuff that I also kind of zoned out on. It was talking about like weapon spread and like when you're hitting certain angles on a target and how the pip works, and overall it just seems like your pip is going to work better.
Yeah. Which at the end of the day is a good thing. And then they also showed off some atmospheric flight as well.
Yeah, just with the Gladius thing.
Yeah, what's up with that? Maybe just so there's a constant throughout the whole show. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the Gladius is their like testbed ship where they do all the new tech and stuff with first, and then move it to other ships. I guess mainly because it's the main ship in Squadron 42. But yeah, it's,
don't get me wrong. Like I like the Gladius, right? I've got the Pirate Gladius pledge, but it would be cool to see some of these systems with other ships.
Yeah, and just going over the atmospheric flight, I know a lot of people are excited for it with the control surfaces, and when they flew from that combat scenario down to the surface of the planet, and he told the person flying to just like wiggle their tail, and you could see the rudders on the Gladius move, and the whole crowd just like cheered. So like, I know a lot of people are excited for it, and it's definitely going to change the way combat in atmosphere works. And like having your Gladius, move more like a real plane, and having to, roll and pitch into your turn, and being able to stall and glide through atmosphere. That's all really cool stuff. That I'm excited to get my hands on. But my one concern is how it works for ships without, large control surfaces, like the Caterpillar. For example, they were saying how your VTOLs are going to overheat and stuff, so you can't just hover indefinitely anymore, and you're going to burn through more fuel hovering and such like that. So I'm curious to see how the atmospheric flight and control surfaces works on those more like boxy ships. And obviously some ships aren't meant to go in atmosphere at all, but it's cool seeing it, obviously, and I'm excited for it. I wish they would have talked a little bit more about, other ships, but it's going to be cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. We'll find out more details soon.
TM.
Living on the Edge. That was the next panel that they covered. I think the second to last one for day 2 of CitizenCon.
We're already running a little long on time here, so for just the sake of time, maybe we should jam through this one. It wasn't a whole lot of like cool stuff. I think the gist of it was kind of like showing the new pyro stations, and how there's going to be different ways of traversal, and how that's also tied to rep. So like if you have reputation with Rough and Ready, go to one of their stations, they might let you right through. If you don't have rep with them, you can maybe pay a fine to get into their market, or you can go through the vents and sneak in. They talked about certain areas within the station, like, VIP sections with like better merchants or whatever, tied behind rep, which I think is really cool. Like how we said earlier in the episode, how reputation is going to kind of be this fundamental thing throughout the game. I think bringing that into especially like locations, and just making you have to, you're not going to be able to go refuel at a headhunter's station if you're affiliated with Rough and Ready.
Right.
So that's going to be a really cool dynamic for the pyro system. Seeing that stuff play out with reputation, going to be cool. I don't think it's in the playtest yet, as far as I know. Like the gang reputation, and maybe they're waiting until they fill it out with the rest of the gangs. But other than that, they showed off. Oh, was there anything you wanted to comment on that?
No, I mean, other than I'm just excited to see this reputation stuff come online. Again, I continue to be a fan of this idea that you need to be mindful of gameplay choices that you're making, because they are going to have consequences. What mission types that you're doing, quest givers that you're going to for the content that you're playing through. Like all of that is going to start to have a bigger impact on how the NPCs in the game perceive you. Which is exciting. They talked about the outpost assets during this panel too. I thought this was really cool because currently in the game, things can look a little samey around the verse, right? And so them showing off the tons of new modules that they've been working on to really mix and match when it comes to Outpost, I think that looks really cool. Especially like, I guess we did it to ourselves, right? You and I have both done a ton of bunkers.
Right.
And man, once you've been to one bunker, you've been to 1,000 bunkers, and they kind of all just look the same for the most part, so a little bit more diversity there, I think, is going to be a good thing. It was cool to see all that. They also talked about the bigger outposts can be attacked by rival gangs as well. And
that was one of the things that stood out to me was just how dynamic the outpost in Pyro can be. They were like, you might land at like a Rough and Ready, and there's a windmill that needs to be repaired up on the hill, and you go repair the windmill, and while you're up on the hill, you see a faction gang like rolling across the desert towards the outpost, so now you have to defend the outposts and stuff. So just that kind of dynamic mission stuff happening where you're not necessarily like accepting something and then going and doing it. It's just you're reacting to what's happening around you. That's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes back to that aspect of the game of like, you never quite know what's going to happen, right? And not everything's going to go according to plan, and you're going to have to think on your feet and adjust to situations and adapt. And this is going to be another example of that coming to the game. Talked about outpost archetypes and themes, right? Salvaging outpost, trading outpost, mining outpost. Yeah, I don't know. All of this stuff is a cool panel, but I really want to talk about Destination Adventure, man.
Yeah. All this stuff is like, is basically they were basically just showing off stuff coming in Pyro. I feel like,
yeah,
they did touch on that new microtech settlement they're working on or worked on. It's coming out soonish. That lake or whatever. It had a nice little bar in it that looked cool. They showed off that big like oil rig looking structure that's like, I guess, another settlement. That's going to be really neat to explore. I hope they add more. I hope they like go back to Stanton and add more variation with all these modules they're creating. Not just with like the abandoned and like sort of halfway habited outposts, but like the places we go to, like I guess all the bunkers and stuff might change eventually with the underground facilities, but yeah, just making the locations feel more different will be cool. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that Living on the Edge panel.
So next up, finally, Destination Adventure. I said earlier that the FPS panel was one of my bright spots from CitizenCon. And now, having sat with it, I think my absolute favorite panel, just because I'm a Star Wars Galaxies dork, was Destination Adventure.
It was hype.
Oh man,
that's for sure.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
At the end of the panel, when Todd Pappy comes out and talks about the base building, I wish I would have been streaming or something, because my face was literally like, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, I did not expect them to talk about base building this early. Like, we always knew it's a goal, but I was like, man, we don't have server meshing, we don't have replication layer yet, we don't have pyro yet. Like, base building was the furthest thing from my mind that they would be working on soon. And I was blown away when they were showing the little like pan across of all the buildings and like showing what they were and stuff. Like, I was excited.
Oh yeah, me too. And do we want to talk about stuff that they first showed in the panel first, or do we want to get straight into the base building? Because I'm cool either way.
Let's go in order. I just wanted to.
Okay.
I just wanted to get out there how excited I was about this panel.
Right with you. Yeah, right there with you. So they started off talking about distribution centers. They're cool. You know, they look awesome.
I hope they replace
huge.
I hope they replace a lot of the like bunkers and just like normal stuff we go to now, that maybe you'll go down in these distribution centers for FPS gameplay and stuff. They did talk about that towards the end of this little section here, but yeah, they look really good for sure. And roads.
Didn't we see? I was going to say too, with the distribution centers, didn't we see those earlier this year in Inside Star Citizen? Is that this year?
I think that's the same thing. They showed off the big facilities with like the huge buildings on the surface and like all these like modular rooms underground, and it was in gray box, I think. So yeah, I think we've seen a little bit of these already.
So I remember watching one and going away from it feeling like, oh, this is like Bunkers 2.0, you know?
Yeah.
And that seems to continue to be the case, but you know, I'm excited to go explore them and see what all content they provide. And you know, maybe we'll drive to them on some roads.
It did seem like they're pretty early in development though, so
yeah.
Who knows if we'll even see them by like end of next year. I feel like they got a lot of work to do on them, but they look really good. And they talked about the roads and like how they're really spread out. So you have like landing pads outside and roads that lead to the like distribution center, and just having that more than just like a one little building with an elevator that you go down to. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be owned by different factions, right? There's going to be missions available there as well. The admin areas where you're going to have some exclusive access to some missions for those that have higher rep with whatever factions in control of the place, right?
They talked about like VIP sections and getting access to like certain areas for higher tier missions, and I guess kind of like the stations in Pyro, you're going to have higher tier stuff you can get. Like if you have more reputation with Grey Cat, maybe you get higher tier trading missions or something, or whatever. And and there's supposed to be I guess the administration offices and stuff are going to look different depending on what faction controls them also.
Yeah. And they also talked about raids. So,
oh boy.
You can't be an MMO without a good raid, right?
Yeah. It looked like the underground facilities themselves. It also looked like very early stuff they were working on. It kind of looked just like a really spiced up bunker mission.
Yeah, just a bunker on steroids. Yeah.
Yeah, and they said there'd be different scenarios like extract the VIP or get the certain material or eliminate everybody. There'll be different scenarios that play out. One of the cool things I saw in the little demo that they were showing were the two players carrying the box with the tractor beams, providing cover for the other characters shooting. So like being able to use your environment and stuff like that to figure out how to complete the raid is going to be cool.
Yeah. You'll be able to get creative with your solutions.
Yeah, I wonder how much harder they're actually going to be and how much better the reward is actually going to be versus just your normal combat missions and stuff. So we'll see when we get there, but I always thought raids would be like, I mean, I guess they can have different levels. I always thought raids would be like, there's a system that being attacked by the Vandal and you have to go squad up with the boys and bring all the firepower and you'll be lucky to make it out alive I thought like Vandal systems and alien threats would be more raid material, but maybe they'll do both.
Yeah, they definitely could. And as far as rewards too, like they don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like some badass armor sets that you can only get through doing the raid, or particular rifle or whatever. Like there's a sniper that you can only get from this boss that sometimes spawns during this raid. Yeah, that sort of thing. I don't know. We're a long ways away from raiding in Star Citizen, but it is cool that they're at least talking about it and coming up with some plans and brainstorming different ideas on how they can bring that into the game. It was cool to hear about. The freight elevators, it's going to be surprisingly kind of cool.
Yeah. I think I mean, they've talked about persistent hangars before, but they've never said how they're going to work, I guess. And it seems like this is going to change. They've always talked about no more magic inventory, no more infinite. It's not infinite now, but it might as well be infinite local inventory where you can just throw stuff in. So now everything's going to be physicalized. So all of your weapons, your armor is actually going to have to be stored in a box that you actually walk up to and interact with before you can pull or store your equipment in. So that's going to be a big change that I'm okay with. I'm also kind of okay with the magic inventory how it is now. It's definitely going to make the game more immersive, and it's all about that fidelity. But just having to actually store your stuff in boxes and it being persistent is the coolest thing for me.
Right.
If you go out and I see Astropub go out and collect relics and these big slabs of rock and just random shit from missions, you can go back and store all that shit in your hangar and it's always going to be there. You can kind of organize it how you want, and I don't know, just being able to go drop off some cargo that you don't want to deal with right now and deal with it later or something like that, going to be cool. And being able to do the ground vehicles, store them and pull them out right there, that's a big quality of life change there. So
absolutely,
I'm pretty excited for them. I hope they come in. I don't know how they can do them before server meshing, but yeah, just having, like, we all want our persistent habs and our own place to decorate and stuff, and I think that's this is going to be the first step towards that, and the first like permanent thing you have to make your own, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of which, making something your own, can we talk about it? Can we get to the base building? See, was there anything else on there? The Interstellar Transport Guild. Do you have much to say on the guild?
I think that was just, I think they mentioned that as like a new faction that you're going to be able to like do cargo missions for. I hope they add in like stuff from like Elite where you go to a station, you pick up cargo, you deliver that cargo, and then you get paid. You're not like paying for the cargo and then making a profit off that cargo. Right. Maybe this Interstellar Transport Guild will kind of introduce moving stuff like that, or moving stuff for players. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think they hinted on that a little bit and talked about the new types of cargo you might have to deal with, like volatile, and keeping it environmentally controlled, and just adding new. I guess we have some volatile cargo and stuff now, but I think they're just adding new types.
Right. Pretty cool stuff there.
Oh, yeah. They talked about like you can get like ships branded with the Interstellar Transport Guild and like certain hangar flare and like special items from them. And I think that's one of the things we talked about earlier in the episode was gaining stuff based on reputation and seeing someone with that Transport Guild ship being like, oh, that if I need something traded, I'll go to that guy because he knows what he's doing. So
exactly.
So stuff like that I'm always looking forward to.
And then Todd Pappy came out with just a beautiful presentation. There's so much hype right now. There's so much hopium and copium, and you can mix it all up and just, oh my God. So
I got lightheaded and almost passed out from all the copium during that panel. I swear.
Base building. So the video package that they first showed that you talked about earlier, as the camera was sort of panning around and they were showing the different structure types going up and becoming part of this player base, was super cool to see, and highly recommend anybody who hasn't watched it go out there. I think it was Nubifire, I think, that just put up like that particular snippet on YouTube. If you just want to see that isolated, it's worth checking out. But I would suggest also just watching the entire Todd Pappy presentation, because of the detail that he goes into after that video package runs. So one, these bases, it's not just a home, right? You can do a trading post, you're doing resource gathering, which that I was really happy to hear, because, and for whatever reason in my head, it was that when we finally do have base building in the game, it's essentially just going to be like residential stuff. I think maybe that was because of knowing like the Merchant Man is one day going to show up in the game. And by one day, I mean Christmas this year. You'll have sort of like a mobile shop. And so I thought that was going to kind of be specific to the Merchant Man for whatever reason. No. You can have your own like business or store or whatever as part of your base, which I was really happy to hear. That's the plan. They talked about different blueprints that would be tied into the reputation system, including one I think was listed as like a rare shopkeeper. which again, coming from that Star Wars Galaxies background, one of the things that I think I've mentioned it before that I like to do was I would run a general store where I would go, I would get a land deed, find some land, put up a building, and that building would basically be used to just sell stuff that I wasn't personally interested in keeping for my character, but I knew it wasn't also junk. Somebody would want it, right? But it was kind of like a catch-all. Just any stuff from the inventory that I don't need, I'm gonna throw on into this vendor, and people on my server could come to my store, browse the wares, buy it, and then go about their business. So I'm really excited about the idea of having a physical, grounded business in Star Citizen as well. But more so than, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, more so than all of that, like, not just specifically having the business. I'm so excited for us to be able to have an impact in the game's environment, right? To where you are going to have your own little spot on Microtech or on Hurston or somewhere out in Pyro, whatever it might be. And that sliver of land, that's yours, baby. That's yours, and you get to customize it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like when we were talking about the distribution center just earlier, I was like, yeah, these are going to be really cool locations to go check out. But in the back of my head, I was like, but what I'm really excited for is what I'm not expecting. What I'm going to just kind of discover in the game, whether it's somebody advertising a location and server chat, hey, come check out my stuff, come buy some stuff from me, or whether it's stumbling upon it as we're just out exploring somewhere. It's like, oh, somebody's got an outpost over there. Let's see what's going on here. And just, you know, when PES was first going online, they were talking about, it was like environmental storytelling, like, oh, what happened with this crash ship? I wonder what the story was, you know. Did they lose control of their ship? Were they shot down? But what happened here? All that stuff's cool, but even more significant to me is something like this, where players are, you know, constructing things that you can then interact with yourself. And it's something that's going to be more dynamic than, you know, a pre-made landing zone by CIG, or a distribution center, or a bunker where it's always static, it's always in place. Like these outposts, like maybe you'll come back and revisit another time, and there will be even more to it because that players continue to add on to it and to continue to, you know, for lack of better phrasing, like level up the base. So that's really exciting to me. They talked about, I'm sorry, did you want to jump in?
I just wanted to, I was going to say, is like the first thing he talked about is the first step is deciding what you want to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, the trading post or the home. So I was wondering how, if you're going to be able to run, I'm sure you will, like, but will you be able to run multiple places? Like, will you be able to have like a little homestead in, you know, a secure location where you keep all your stuff, you don't have to worry about it being attacked. But then you also have a land claim and a lawless system where, you know, you're harvesting resources. It has to be defended, and you're using it to make money. Or are you going to have to combine those two? You know, is it going to have to be your homestead and your resource gathering place? You know,
yeah.
Are you going to have options to do multiple bases? I guess basically, which I feel like you probably will. It's just going to be like a monetary thing where you have to pay taxes and fees if it's in lawless or a lawful system and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be cool to see, like you were saying, like just coming across like a player's base, or maybe you're out in Pyro and you really need a new power plant for your ship that got messed up during the solar flare, and you fly by and there's an org base selling power plants. Just you know, You stop there and buy stuff and meet new people, and
Yep.
yeah, it's going to add way more dynamic experiences and like unique encounters with other players. Just being able to have like, you know, I've always wanted to just go throw down a little land claim on Microtech and just have a little house that I can decorate and do some fishing by the river. And if that's all I want to do that day, that's all I do. And I hope this base building kind of lets you do that. And they talk about kind of like the blueprints and stuff. I guess, you know, if you want to have the best stuff, you're going to have to do harder missions, have better rep with other factions, certain NPCs. Steal those blueprints from another org space or something. We don't know, but I think he said all of it is going to be tied to and but he's common materials, rare materials, everything in between. It's going to determine, like, I guess, how much protection you get or how resources are gathered or how good it looks. Yeah, I guess next they talk about the different land types that you can have.
This I was really intrigued by. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with high security, with that land claim, so you're probably looking at a place more like a Microtech, if I had to guess, versus a Planet and Pyro. So with that land claim, you're going to get, so basically the way it's going to work is that's going to be low risk, low reward, right? And as you're paying for your taxes that's going to give you protection that's going to be provided for you to where you're not having to stick around your base or whatever. If somebody shows up and they're causing trouble at your outpost, NPC security will be alerted and come, help with the situation, right? So it's very secure, but there's not a large profit margin there, and it's expensive to run, right? High taxes.
That's probably going to be your just little house by the river, I would assume.
Yeah. Then you've got low security, where you're not paying as much in taxes, but you're still paying taxes, and with that, you're going to get partial protection. So the security is not going to be as great as in high security, but there is still some there. Like, there's a security presence. It's described more as like medium risk, medium reward. And then there's the lawless, right? Where you're not paying any taxes. It's very high risk, high reward, but there's no protection, like, other than what you place, right? So if you put some turrets out there, that sort of thing. And
no land claim. That's the most interesting part to me.
And no land claim. If it's
completely lawless, you don't have to pay for a land claim. You can just show up and be like, this shit's mine.
Yeah, just the Wild West, right? Yeah. So having those three different categories to choose from, I think is really interesting and smart. Not just as like in terms of the balancing of, okay, well, I'm paying higher taxes, so I'm going to get more security, or I'm not paying any taxes, so I'm going to have to provide my own security completely. But also, like, I think this is going to help make it more manageable to where things aren't getting too cluttered with player outpost, right? Because you do have that upkeep. This was one of the sort of balancing acts that Galaxies did, because when you were putting your player house down in Star Wars Galaxies, you had to pay a maintenance fee, and eventually, if you didn't continue to pay that maintenance fee, your house would be removed from the game, right? So you couldn't just set up a house and then not log in for a year and then expect it to still be there when you got back, right? So I think by them setting it up this way, to where you are going to have to maintain one way or another, whether it's high security, paying those high taxes, logging in, making sure to do that, medium security, paying the medium taxes, or if you're in that lawless area, just having to log in and go back and check to make sure your stuff is still there and hasn't been destroyed. It's going to make it to where you're not going to just have a bunch of players show up, do a land claim, and then disappear for 6 months, and their stuff still be there, right? It's going to make it to where the game's not getting overly crowded with these bases. Like they're going to have to at least be somewhat active in the game, right? For that stuff to continue to exist.
I think that leads into the next point I have on the notes here. They didn't talk about how it works with across shards or server meshing. Having that mechanic where you have to at least log in and kind of like check on it and pay for it or maintain it or defend it, whatever it is, it's not going to be like, somebody goes and claims this super cool place and then they don't log in for 6 months and it's still sitting there like abandoned because the game's not clearing it up or something. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The fact of just keeping more places available for people that actively play to claim stuff and clearing up junk that has been abandoned, essentially.
Yeah, you don't want some guy with a primo spot that's not logged in for 2 years, like. And
I know I've gone back to DayZ. Gone back to DayZ a lot this episode, but it's kind of like in DayZ where I enjoy playing servers without base building for the most part. And when you do play those servers with base building, there might be a certain area or a certain building that you want to have access to, that you need access to while you're trying to survive. You might need food, shelter, whatever. And just because a player has boarded it up 3 months ago and never logged back in, you can't get in there. So yeah, having something to kind of mitigate that is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. I do wonder how exactly it is going to work though across shards and servers. Like what if just by chance you and I playing on a separate shard just happen to place an outpost at the same spot on the same planet, and then we log into the same shard after that. We happen to end up on the same server. Like, what happens to our outposts? Like, are they slightly offset from one another? Like, is the game going to know to like scoot one over a little, or is it just going to be the first person that logs in, like theirs is going to populate and the second person just won't have access to their outpost? Like, I'm glad I don't have to answer this question that somebody being paid at CIG is going to have to instead.
And Todd kind of hit on it. He's like, we'll talk about that later, how it's going to work once we get closer to meshing and stuff. But I could see it working somehow, like if you do have the same area claimed, maybe the backend realizes that and automatically. So like if, I don't know, let's use Daymar for example, and it's both on Daymar, maybe you're in the same Seraphim station shard or server, whatever they're calling it, and then when you quantum travel to Daymar, it's going to know to put you on a different shard than Billy, who also has that same land claimed. So when he jumps, maybe he'll be put on a different server automatically. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not the one that has to figure out how to make that work.
No kidding. They talked about the different sizes of buildings and things that you'll need for those sizes. So you can do anywhere from small buildings to extra large buildings. And I forget exactly, I might get this a little wrong, but I forget the exact breakdown, but it was something like you on foot, you could do like small buildings. If you had a vehicle, you could do medium buildings. If you had, was it the Galaxy, you could do large buildings. And if you had the Pioneer, you could do extra large buildings.
That sounds right.
I think
and I think they can go down too. So like Pioneer can do everything, Galaxy can do large, and smaller. So yeah, I think that's the way they explained it.
So, which that's good to know that the you're going to be able to participate in base building even if you don't have the Pioneer. You won't be able to do all the extra large buildings, right? But if you have the Galaxy, you could do large, or even if you don't have the Galaxy, but you got a vehicle, you can still do medium-sized buildings, right? You can still participate and come up with your own base, even if that's not going to be one of the things your character necessarily specializes in. And when I say that, I mean like you're not going to have the Pioneer Pledge on your account, or maybe necessarily wanted to save up all the credits to buy a Pioneer in game whenever that eventually happens.
Or it could be something where extra large structures are too expensive for a single player to maintain, so it might be more of like a group org mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty neat, and the fact that he teased it. They didn't give us anything specific whatsoever, but they did tease that they're looking into similar things that can be done in space with base building. So, which
I think we talked about it in one of our recent episodes about being able to run a space station and selling gas to another player, or basically providing services for other players coming to that location. And yeah, we'll see what they do in space, but I think they'll focus on the ground first.
Oh yeah. But there's, whether it is something like running a small space station, or whether it's you go find an asteroid and you can somehow set up shop on an asteroid, right? Pop up some sort of facility for people to visit like that. Like that could be really cool too. Outside of space stations and asteroids, I'm not sure exactly what else you could do, but it's cool that they're thinking about it. And we're really getting, I think, ahead of ourselves when we're talking about space base building, because we don't even know for sure that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But man, think about all of the possibilities and variety, because we're talking about initially things going up on planets and moons, and in Star Citizen, those are already large locations. But the vacuum of space, there's so much room out there. And how does a claim work? Right? How do you claim part of space?
Right.
That's
I guess
going to be
like
interesting.
A bubble, or like instead of just a flat plane, like a sphere.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's fun to think about. I'm interested in seeing what they come up with, if they come up with anything for space base building, but also it's going to be a while before we see anything on that. Which is fine, because I'm still super pumped for what they did show. It's kind of mind blowing, the amount that they showed. But Todd did give the nod that they are thinking about space. The land claim with the drone looked pretty cool. They showed that you could adjust the size of the claim, and that it would price it out to you accordingly. I thought that was really cool.
That you can see what you're building before you build it, and kind of like lay out the blueprints, and have to just throw it up and immediately build it. Good thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because that's way more in depth than we've talked before about Star Citizen, at least in part, being an SWG spiritual successor. In Star Wars Galaxies, when you were placing a building, it would just sort of like highlight on the ground the exact amount of space that building was going to take up, and either you could place it there or you couldn't, right? Like if it was a large building and there were some huge boulders or something in the way, like it wouldn't let you place the building, but it was still a set dimensions. The fact that you can customize the amount of land that you want is really cool to me. So it's a little bit more in depth than the Galaxy.
I'm sure that'll affect your fees and taxes, stuff like that too.
Yeah. But it looked like within the drone there was like some sort of price slider that was happening to where it would update you to show you what sort of cost you were looking at, which then also plays into just the UI stuff going forward, looking really good. So I'm not sure how close the actual drone animation stuff, like the circle on the ground that they were showing in the video, like I don't know how close that's going to be to what actually ends up in game, but what they showed I thought looked pretty cool in the panel, visually and aesthetically. I thought it looked nice. But yeah, and the fact that they would let you see the sort of silhouette of the building before it being placed, again, really cool as well. And then they got into fabrication, which I was not ready for fabrication. What all they were talking about you would be able to do with that.
Yeah, they basically said that I guess each building spawns, or when you build it, is kind of unfurnished. And then that's when fabrication comes in. Which,
you could build furniture, right? Which is kind of to be expected. Decorations, that all makes sense. And armor and weapons, components, even all of that I was ready for. It's like, sure, okay. Yeah, we can make our own guns and our own armor. That's all cool. And then he said ships. Dude, I was not ready for ships.
Yeah, I kind of had to double take on that.
Like, what? How cool is that?
Yeah, I guess if you have all the right materials, you can build your Aurora or whatever it is. If you go through all the task of getting everything you need and have the right building for it. That's I didn't expect that to be a thing.
So, and I do wonder, like, will it be set up to where there's some ships you just can't craft? Like, obviously, I think like capital ships you're probably not going to be able to do, but even on a smaller scale, I don't know exactly what the reason would be, but say for example, for whatever reason, you just can't do like an MSR or whatever. Like, do you think the pool of ships that we're going to be able to craft is going to be pretty small, or do you think we'll be able to craft most ships up to a certain size?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would definitely assume it's up to a certain size. Like you said, obviously not capital ships, but even like up to like Hercules, like, they build those specifically in Orison in that kind of like low atmospheric area where they can kind of let them hang there and work on them specifically there. So like I don't know how that translates to a building at your outpost, Yeah. Maybe you can only build single seater ships, or and also like what's going to be the cost of gathering all this stuff and building it versus just going to Loreville and paying the money for it, like it's there's got to be some trade-off to gathering all the stuff for it rather than just going and buying it. Like you said, maybe there's certain ships you can't buy and can only make.
Right.
Who knows?
But that would be cool. Or even custom ships. That would be insane.
Yeah. Well, like in the Squadron 42 video, they have that weird looking Cutlass Black that looks like it has like the thrusters from a different ship on the front of it, and the wings are gone and all that kind of shit. So maybe it's more of a ship customization option rather than just building straight up replica ships that you can buy. I don't know, but yeah, it's one thing crazy that he said you can build ships in the first place, and just how that's going to work and what kind of limitations they're going to put on it. Like, I'm sure we're going to get a lot more information in 2024 when they start developing it. Just being able to build anything, that's pretty crazy.
Yes, it is. I'm going to lean towards it being a pretty limited pool of things that we can we can craft as far as the ships go, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some more information on that next year, like you said. And then let's see, what else did they talk about? You'll be able to have garages, landing pads, storefronts, so different utility structures within the base. And then the extractor buildings, is that for like resources? Do I have that right?
Yeah. So they said there's like two types of building: utility and extraction. Basically, and one's like so landing pads, storefronts, et cetera. Then extractors are going to be stuff where you pull out like minerals or water or whatever it is you gather there, which I guess kind of ties into the high security versus low security, what you're going to be able to gather from those extracting buildings. But yeah, I think those are the two main types of buildings.
So, but the extractors, they'll gather the materials that you need to build your own bingle at home. That's how that's going to work. Also, power generators, right? They've got solar fuel, geothermal, windmills. You'll be able to put up defensive structures as well, a la turrets, right?
They didn't really touch on those a whole lot, like how they would work automated versus manned, or you have to restock them, I'm assuming, and stuff. And
yeah,
I'm sure it'll be basic like anti-air turrets, stuff like that.
And then, as we mentioned, production is going to start next year, but not just next year, but Q1 next year, like early 2024, they're going to get this underway, which, the fact that one, they talk so much about base building was super cool and unexpected to me. But two, not only does it start production next year, but early next year, I wasn't expecting that either.
And the fact that they've put so many devs, I think we've been able to see that just since CitizenCon, all the devs moving from Squadron over to the PU, just with Pyro, and they got the EPTU out, and they got 321.1, and they're working on 322 and IAE, and like I think you can really see how they've ramped up PU production. So that gives me a lot of hope for that base building production starting next year, that we might see something the year after. It might not be that 2 years away. It might only be a year and a half or so. Wishful thinking, I guess, but yeah.
I mean, but also, base building, I'm sure it's going to come in there's going to be a tier 0 base building or whatever, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't at least get some of the basics of it in the game by 2025, if not by some miracle late 2024. But I could see
maybe
base building in some form definitely being in the game 2025.
Not only do they have to develop the base building and mechanics and how it works, they're going to have to build those ships to build the buildings. They got to make the Galaxy, they got to make the Pioneer, they got to make that ground vehicle they showed off. So like, all that has to be produced too. So we'll see.
But it's exciting, and dude, overall, just day 2, I think, of CitizenCon is probably the stronger day of the two, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the Star Engine was super cool to see day 1, right? But just as far as like really a lot of detail and a lot of substance, day 2 was pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think I definitely enjoyed day 2 more than the first day. Just I guess mainly because of the base building. But yeah, the atmospheric flight, the blinking right. The like AI combat updates. It's all like EVA. Like I said, EVA is probably my second most look forward to quality of life update other than the star map.
Yep. So, updated looting. as well, right? That's pretty huge. And of course, Starcloth. So
Can't forget that.
Exactly. But no, I'm walking away from, I think overall, this CitizenCon, it's the strongest that I've known for them to have. I can't think of a year that was any better than this year. Both from the point of view of the amount and quality of information and updates that we're getting from this year, and then by virtue of that and as consequence, just this overwhelming sense of positivity that's found its way into the Star Citizen community since the CitizenCon has been so nice. I'm really thankful for that too.
It was very, very doom and gloom before CitizenCon.
Dark times.
I mean, CitizenCon always pumps a lot of copium into the community, and I feel like it usually wears off within like a week or two, because you're just like, they showed off a lot of cool stuff, but we're never going to see it for another, year, 2 years plus. But I feel like a lot of stuff at this year's CitizenCon was stuff we're about to see within the next 12 months.
Yeah. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that's...
Yeah. Obviously not like the base building and stuff, but I feel like most of like the combat, the UI changes, maybe even master modes, like that's all coming pretty soon.
Star map. Yep. God, Star map better be within the next 12 months. Otherwise, I'm going to cry. Yeah, any final thoughts on CitizenCon? Like, there was so much to go over, and a lot of stuff, we talked about a little bit, but there's just so much information from this thing. Like, we could, if we really wanted to do like a hyper detailed breakdown, like we could talk about CitizenCon for the next, 10 episodes if you wanted to, right? So, but with what we did go over, and we've pretty much touched on everything to different degrees.
It was overall, a lot to digest, and talking about it these past 2 episodes has helped me understand some of it a lot more, and I'm hyped. Probably too much.
So I think what's really going to be a really good temperature check for next year, I think it's going to be those first 2 quarter patches. If they come out and they're feeling really solid, whatever they end up being, I think the hype is going to continue from the CitizenCon and then going into next year's CitizenCon. Mm-hmm. Man, if we get to say quarter 2 of next year and things are still seeming real slow, like they have this year, oh God, I don't know how you're going to get the air back in the balloon without them really coming through with some of these updates that they showed us this year. We have to get them next year. Not all of them, right? But a lot of them need to make their way into the game and in the closer half of 2024 versus, us getting hyped for stuff that's going to come quarter 3 and quarter 4 of next year. Like, need to be excited for stuff then too, but we need to see some of this hitting quarter 1, quarter 2. I think.
I think like we discussed, just seeing the more people move over to the PU, and like we have vehicle tractor beams coming out soon, and good quality of life updates, and we'll see what they haven't announced everything from quarter 4 yet. So we'll see how that sets the pace. But we know quarter 4 is usually a fairly light patch.
Yeah.
And then, quarter 1, they come back after the holiday breaks and got to get the wheels spinning again. So yeah, I don't expect to see a lot of major stuff happen until quarter 2 of next year. But yeah, like you said, we gotta start seeing some of this stuff in our hands rather than just looking at it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess with that too, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Appreciate everybody that checked out the podcast. We know this was a long one, but again, there was so much to go over. And again, if you really wanted to, you could talk about CitizenCon information until you're blue in the face. But appreciate everybody for checking out the podcast. And, this was on the longer side, going forward, I'm sure our episodes will probably be closer to about the 1 hour mark, but hey, when it's CitizenCon, you got a lot to talk about.
We honestly could have done an episode for each panel, but
that
would have been
for real.
Yeah, that would have been a lot, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about and digest, and we just kind of hit the big points on it.
Yeah, but thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back next week, and again, probably with shorter run times. But for anybody that's still listening at this point, thank you so much. Seriously, please hit that like button and subscribe so that you get notifications for future podcast episodes, and then also our reaction videos that we've been doing. So far, we've taken a look at some of the panels from CitizenCon, but going forward, don't be surprised to see some Inside Star Citizen reacts for new ones coming out for Star Citizen Live. Maybe we'll even take a look into the past, some stuff that we've talked about off the air that, I don't want to commit to on air, but maybe we'll take some look back in time with Star Citizen as well, with reaction videos. And there's going to be so much more to talk about with the game. I've not touched Pyro yet. You've not touched Pyro yet, but that's going to happen soon, TM. So there's going to be a lot to talk about with that as well. So there's going to be plenty of discussion coming forward. What's that?
The Interstellar Aerospace Expo.
Oh, right around the corner.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's next week. Lots of
right.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
17th. I don't know what today's date is, but it's on
Today's
the 17th.
the 8th.
Okay.
So we're recording on the 8th, so that is going to be not this Friday, but next Friday from date of recording. So coming up very, very soon. Yeah. So anyway, Silvius, this was a great time. I know we talked about a lot, but it was very enjoyable. And I too feel like I've got a little bit of a better understanding of some of the information at these panels, having discussed it on the podcast. And yeah, this was a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Be sure to check out our socials. We are on both Twitter/X and Instagram. The handles for both platforms is @CommLink Pod. And of course, we're also on Spotify. So if you're listening over there, thank you for that as well. For those of you on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment down below about your thoughts on CitizenCon. Was there anything in particular in day 2 that you were most excited about? Maybe it was some of the master mode stuff they talked about. Maybe it was some of the AI updates. Maybe it was the base building. But let us know some of your highlights for CitizenCon day 2. And until next time, be safe, everybody. We're gonna wrap this bad boy up because we're probably already 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something crazy.
Yep, almost 3 hours.
Oh my God, we got to go, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much. Hit the like, hit the bell. Bye. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone. Love you all. Bye.